Hello. So I have Bethlehem is here and Anne is here. How are you guys doing today? And it's up to you if you want to participate and unmute yourselves and chime in. You're absolutely welcome to do that. You're also able, hi Karen, how are you? You're also able to participate in the chat. I'll be throwing a few questions out in the chat and you can answer my questions that way as well. So while we're waiting for people to arrive, I just thought I'd throw a question out there just to kind of find out a little bit about what your work life environment is currently like. Wondering if you could let me know if you are working from home right now, or you're working from an office, or if you're doing some sort of combination. And I'll be throwing questions out to the group as we're going through the webinar. So, alrighty, Kieran, you're retired, nice. And then another question, when you get a chance, I'm wondering what field you're in. You guys just kind of getting a feel for what careers you guys have and what's going on. Oh, great. We got another. Anne is retired as well. Anne is a family member, and she also is working in retirement. An administrative assistant is Bethlehem. Great. Before we get started, I just wanted to give everyone just 1 second. I know we're all busy, and I'm so thankful that you decided to show up today and to be here for this webinar. And just wanted to offer to take 1 minute for us to turn our cell phones off and to be able to maybe get a drink of water, close our tabs. And I just want to invite you to be able to be fully present for this next hour. And so we'll just take a minute to be able to do that. All right, we have Karen, a retired nurse, currently in the process of taking the self-study. Okay, great. Awesome. I'm glad you're here today, Karen. All right. It looks like we're ready to roll. I wanted to start by introducing myself. I'm Tracey Huebner. I'm a Clear Inner Focus coach. I've been working with the Clear Inner Focus principles for about 4 years now. And just wanted to let everybody know that the impact that it's had on my life is, I mean, I can't even state the difference that it's had, and it's just been transformative to me. So I'm thrilled to be able to be working with Patty and Clear Inner Focus. Prior to working with Clear Inner Focus, actually and currently, I have my background is in marketing. So I have 30 years in the business world. I've held a variety of different jobs, and a lot of them have been quite involved and stressful. And so definitely have a feeling for what it's like to have pretty intense work commitments. All the while, I have 2 kids who are grown now, but was a working mom, wife, and also just having outside interests. And we've got Claudia here. So hi, Claudia. I'm really glad you can join us. If you choose to, Claudia, I would love to hear a little background on what what your marketing field, or excuse me, what your work profession is, and if you're working at home. And if you felt inspired to throw that in the chat, I'd love to know a little background on you. I'm glad you're here. What we're going to be doing today is focusing on a couple key concepts. Number one, I'm going to be introducing the number one thing that you can do to establish clear work-life boundaries. And we'll then be covering the Clear Inner Focus tool of the 4 things that you can control. And then I'm going to share a little bit about my story, kind of where I started and some of the things I struggled with when I was in the working world, and then what I've done to implement some changes in my life. And I'm just hoping by sharing some of those things that you guys might create a little opportunity to learn or see a new perspective on things. And then we're going to do just a little workshop practice at the end of the session, and then close with a way that we close a lot of our coaching sessions is taking one inspired step moving forward. So, and you'll also see I'm going to borrow from a lot of tools that I've learned in coaching and kind of carry over this webinar to run it a similar way to the way I run my coaching sessions. And I see we have Colleen. I'm really happy Colleen is here. Colleen, if you feel inspired to throw up in the chat, don't throw up in the chat, that sounds, but put up in the chat that some of what your work what is your career, and if you are currently working from home or working in a work environment. So to kick off, just to kind of center us, I'm going to be inviting you to take a couple 4-7 breaths with me. I like to start my coaching sessions off with just a couple breaths because that does help us to get centered and be able to be fully present for the moment. So if this feels uncomfortable to you, you don't have to do it, just ignore me. But if you feel comfortable, I just want to invite you to do it. So we're just going to start with an inhale of 4. And then a big exhale of 7. And another one, an inhale of 4. And a big exhale of 7. And one more, an inhale of 4. And a nice exhale of 7. And while we've just taken a moment to slow down and kind of put the outside world, all our to-do tasks, push that kind of out for right now and create a little space where we can be in this webinar, I would like to invite you to write down on a piece of paper an intention that you have for this session. Something that you're hoping that you can gain a little bit of clarity, something you can see a new perspective on, something that you can learn, maybe a new way of looking at things, and to be able to put an intention down on a piece of paper. Okay, and we have Colleen is working in customer service, and she's working from home. So yes, customer service, definitely a lot of those demands encroach into our work life. So the number one thing that we can do to help enforce our work-life boundaries is self-care. And self-care is looking at it through the eyes of the clear inner focus perspective, is an entire concept of caring for ourselves first and tuning into what our needs are, and then being able to give and serve from a point of abundance and overflow as a point instead of a point of sacrifice. So a lot of people think of self-care as a bubble bath or treating themselves to a latte or a manicure or something like that. And while all of those are important things, and those are things that we should do for ourselves if that's what we feel we need, self-care goes much deeper than that. And it is something, it's a way of life, that it isn't something we do once a week. It's something we do every day, all day long, as much as we can tune into it. And the way I'm going to kind of walk through this is as a starting point for us to practice self-care for this next while that we're together in this webinar. So for the next 45 minutes or so, what I'm going to ask you to do is receive this webinar just for you. As caregivers and people of customer service and people in very nursing industry, we are natural caregivers. We love to caregive. And when we hear something that is important, our natural thought is, oh man, that's something my employer should hear. That's something my coworker should hear. Oh man, that'd be great for my son or my daughter or my husband or my friend or something. We automatically jump into caregiver mode. And what I would like you to do is invite in the thought that this session will be taken entirely for you. And then as we're going through things, I'd just like you to kind of check in and notice your inner thought of what is it that I want? For many of us that are caregivers, we are so in tune to everyone's needs around us that we've kind of gotten out of the practice of thinking, boy, what is it that I need and what is it that I want? So I want to invite you through the course of this webinar to be thinking, what is it that I want? And then feel comfortable taking an inspired step to be able to make that happen. And I want to invite you to focus on the positive. So many times until I started working on this, I didn't realize how negative my self-talk was. And the guideline that I like to use for myself is if I wouldn't say it to my best friend, I try to catch myself. Then I shouldn't say it to myself. If I wouldn't say to my best friend, boy, you really messed that up. Wow, gosh, that you really stunk at that. That, whatever we say to ourselves, I try to catch myself and say, wait, if I wouldn't say it to my best friend, I don't want to say it to myself. And until we start to pay attention to that stuff, we don't realize how detrimental we can be to ourselves. So I want for the next hour, I really want us to be tuned into some things that we are saying to ourselves internally. And then when we do catch ourselves in saying something negative, saying, whoops, I caught myself. And then be thankful that you caught yourself and say, I can do better. I'm going to tell myself something nice. So these are all different self-care practices. Another thing that I want us to focus on is connecting with our inner wisdom. So each of us has an inner wisdom, an inner guidance that is always talking to us. It's there. It's some people call it your gut feeling, your gut reaction. Some people call it an inner knowing. Some people call it a connected thought. So we have many names for it, but it's that feeling in your gut. And as I've been working on it and being able to tune into it, I can actually feel it in my stomach. It's a gut feeling and an inner knowing. And the thing about it is it's very, very subtle. And the only time that subtle voice is able to speak to us is one, unless it's screaming at us. So that does happen where it's literally yelling at us, but really it's talking to us nonstop in a very subtle way. And the best way for us to tune into it is to be able to slow down, quiet our mind, take a breath and connect and listen to it. Make a conscious effort to listen to it. So during this time, I would like to invite you to see if there is something in your inner voice that is speaking to you, and if there is a thought that is coming forward. So those are all things that I'm hoping we can exercise. So next, I'm just going to share with you a little bit of my background and kind of a little bit about my journey and what kind of the pattern I was in, and then what I did to break away and create sort of a new path. And my purpose for sharing this story is I'm hoping that you may resonate with some of the things that I'm talking about, and that perhaps it will create some learning for you. All right, so I'm going to just dive in. So I went to Madison. So if there's any other Badger fans out there, I'd love to hear if there's any other UW-Madison grads. But I went to Madison. I graduated in marketing and psychology, and I started working at the Daily Cardinal for any of you Madison grads. And then out of school, I started working at the Green Bay Press-Gazette. And when I was there, I noticed there was a group of people that stayed late. They were the go-getters, the people that were, like the drivers. And I immediately connected with those people. Those were my people, and began working long hours at a young age, staying late and doing whatever it took to make the deadlines, that sort of thing. And then I ended up moving to the Business Journal, which is a weekly business publication. And this was in the 90s. It was an all commission job. And we were in charge of managing publications, and you were given a deadline to meet. And if you missed 2 of your publication deadlines, you would get fired. There were people getting fired all the time. And then, of course, when someone gets fired, the manager would come in and say, hey, Tracey, I don't have anyone to manage this publication. Can you take that on? And I, of course, said, yeah, I'm here. I will do that. And I actually thrived in that environment. Let's face it, I loved it. I loved the excitement, the drive, the deadlines, just all of it. And then from there, I ended up going to Core Creative, which is an advertising agency, and it's where I work today. I've been there for many years. I think it's 18 years. Absolutely love it. The people there are just absolutely wonderful, and I love the agency world. And if anybody has any familiarity with it, it's a really exciting, fast-paced environment. environment. You have the big agency pitches like Mad Men. Yes, we do all that. You have multi-million-dollar campaign launches. You have openings, clinic openings and store openings, and it's just all exciting, creative concepting, the whole bit, all sorts of great stuff. And along with that comes a lot of pressure and deadlines and new clients and all that sort of stuff. I actually loved it. I loved it. And I also had a full life outside of work too, with kids and all that sort of stuff. It wasn't uncommon for me to be taking emails at 2 in the morning, replying to emails at 2 in the morning, working 2 to 4 in the morning. It wasn't uncommon for me to be taking emails while I'm at a vacation abroad, working in the weird hours of the night so that times would sync up, be taking texts from work when I'm on a Jamaican vacation. All that was just kind of how I lived. Everything right. Everything. So you think, well, what's wrong with that? Everything's fine, right? Well, what started happening is I started cracking at the seams. And what that looked like, it was severe bouts of insomnia. I was up from 2 till 4 in the morning regularly. I had an anxious feeling at all times. There was always like an anxious churning in my stomach that I just sort of was used to. My insomnia at times would get so bad that I would go, like about 3 days, I would go without sleeping almost at all. And I would only get concerned if I started like physically tripping, like my coordination started going, like I would start dropping things. And then I would be like, ooh, I better ease up. But that's how hard I was pushing myself. I would have bursts of anxiety. So I exploded on my manager at one time. Sorry about that, Beth, if you end up watching this webinar. I still feel bad about that. It wasn't like me. And wow, where did that come from? Well, I was cracking. And my marriage was falling apart. I wasn't present for my kids, all that sort of stuff. I am just kind of wondering if any of you guys have experienced any of these type of pressure, anxiety, trying to balance things, if any of this is resonating with you. Yeah, it looks like a few people. Mm-hmm. So what's interesting is I would have kept going. So I actually didn't even see any need to change. I'm getting more comments coming in about that, similar experiences. I wouldn't have even changed. There was no red flag going off. I thought I was happy. I just was barreling through life, right? There wasn't any reason to change. I thought I was fine. But then there was the next step where I really lost it. So I had a full meltdown. I had a mental breakdown or anxiety collapse or whatever the heck you want to call it. But I was essentially, I had a collapse. And what that looked like was it felt like I held onto an electric fence and my nervous system was just zzz, and I couldn't stop it. So I couldn't be around electronics. I couldn't be around people. I couldn't be around crowds. I couldn't be around, even the TV on would freak me out. I couldn't be around music. And I basically spent a period of time in my bedroom and on my swing outside. And that lasted for a while until I could get myself calmed down. And I had awful thoughts. And I started to realize that I needed to completely rebuild the way I was in the world. I had lived a life of overgiving. I love rescuing. I still do. I love fixing. If there's chaos, I'd love to step in and help out with that. And it doesn't only apply to my work environment, it applies to my home environment, and friends. So it's something that I have, and it's something I've learned a whole new way of living, but it's something I continue to work on, that's for sure. The other thing is, boy, it sure is easy to blame our employers, right? To say, man, my employer asked me to do this. My employer asked me to do this. They gave me this new client. They're having me work this. They're having me do this. And yes, employers do put demands on us. But when I go back and I look and reflect on my personal experience, what I'm able to see is this pattern went beyond my employer. I was an active participant in it, and I completely own my part in it. I could have switched jobs until I was blue in the face. I would have recreated this environment wherever I went. So I knew the change had to come within me, and I was a willing, active, and ready participant in my part of it. So what did I do? Well, I was in therapy for a while, and that was helpful. But where I really started to make progress is working with Patty and with Clear Inner Focus, and really learning self-care as a way of life, and really tuning into my inner wisdom and making self-care a priority. So I'll walk through just like kind of what my daily life looks like, what that looks like right now. I like a big, heavy helping dose of self-care. Every morning I get up really early, like 5 o'clock, and I spend time meditating. I spend time journaling. I spend time sketching, thinking about my intentions of the day, thinking what I want my year to look like, and then really tapping into what needs do I have right now, taking care of those needs. And then even before a lot of people's days start, then I move forward with my day. A couple practical things that I've changed is I love my agency and I wanted to stay there, but my condition that I was in, I needed to restructure. So I ended up switching my job, and I got a job where I was working 2 days a week. And I was fully willing, ready, and prepared to be able to take a big step financially back. And I figured I'm just going to have to make it happen however, because I can't continue the way I'm going. And I was ready to make some big financial cuts. But what ended up happening is I created space in my life, and the hobby that I have of Airbnb of my business, I was like, oh, I think I can take on leaning into that a little more. And I leaned into that, and that business grew. Now I have 3 main interests: my job at Core, Airbnb, and coaching. And I never had to take a step back. As a matter of fact, last year I made the most money that I made ever in my lifetime. Aside from all these stressful jobs, I had the most financially beneficial year that I've had. And so what I want to say is that sometimes by creating a more intentional way of living and making changes that that are true to your heart, you're able to create opportunities. I just wanted to be able to share that. A couple other details, some other little things that I've done in my life as I was tapping into my intuition. My heart said, I think I want to live at a beach house. And so last year I rented a beach house. I came down to Fort Myers and got a job waitressing at a bar, and spent my days walking on the beach and just really caring for myself. And now I actually own a home down here, and I spend my time half in Wisconsin and half in Florida. And the reason why I'm sharing this is 3 or 4 years ago, I would have never thought any of this was possible. And by working myself and being able to make some changes, I just wanted to be able to share what is possible if that's something that, if whatever your heart's desires are, you can make them happen. So you might be thinking, okay, that's all great, Tracey, but I am really struggling with some work-life boundaries today. What can I do today to help me out with enforce my boundaries? We do have a tool. It's called the 4 Things We Can Control. It's something that I use regularly, and it's something that the more you use it, it kind of becomes habit. It helps bring you into the present. So tapping back into my days of chaos and living in these, working in these high demand jobs, I would find myself where it's a full full chaos. Chaos is going on around. People are snapping at one another. Clients are upset. Stuff is being asked of you that you feel isn't your responsibility. You've already worked a day. You've got all this chaos going on, and you don't even know where to start to be able to get some groundedness. Can anybody relate to that scenario? And what I've found is that there's two types of chaos. One is the outer chaos that's going on all around you. And then the other is the inner chaos, what's going on inside of us. And the four things that we can control are our breath, our imagination, our focus, and our response. And what that looks like, it's when the chaos is going on and we have people bouncing off one another and short reactions and blame going on and just all the stuff that happens when stuff starts to spin out of control. I like to call that a concept I learned from Patty is people soup, where we're not even sure what we're feeling anymore because we're reacting to all the stuff going on around us. That if you can bring yourself and use this tool, and actually what I think I'm going to do is walk us through it right now. If you could take a moment and think about the last time that you felt that chaos that I'm describing, or something else I call a boundary violation, where you feel like, oh, that really violated my boundary. And if you have that situation in your mind, just give you a minute or so just to be able to think about that. Almost like treading water. Yeah, I'm just reading some of the comments. Mm-hmm. No life balance. Yep. Constant anxiety, insomnia. Yes. Just even reading that and reflectively makes me want to take a deep breath. So let's just take another deep breath right now. And I like to tap into the 4-7 breathing. I find that calms me down a lot. Let's just breathe in for 4 and out for 7. In for 4, out for 7. And one more. In for 4, out for 7. And just pause. Right there, that tool is always available to us. Always. And where what's interesting is even reading these comments about the deadlines and the anxiety and the pressures and all that. I start to feel some of that body response in there. And we always have that tool to be able to consciously take a calming breath. And it might seem simple, but when you get into the practice of really tapping into that, bringing yourself back down again, it's a tool that's invaluable and it's always there at our disposal. So that's number 1 is your breath. The next is your focus. We know that what we focus on expands. And when you have a negative thought, there's another negative thought behind it, another negative thought, another negative thought, another negative thought, and it snowballs. But the opposite is true. If we make a conscious choice to focus on something positive and just linger on a positive thought, that also can snowball. Wait, there's another positive thought. There's something else. So as we're thinking about this chaotic situation, I'll have you do this on your own. If you want to spend some time thinking about what thoughts are coming up, feel free to even write those down. And then it may be hard, but what would happen if we made a conscious intention to think of a positive thought? What's going right? What am I doing right? What did I do right the last time this happened? What solutions are out there? What have I not tapped into that could be at my disposal? Who's surrounding me right now that is supporting me? And if we can take a few moments thinking about those thoughts, and that's going to carry us into the next, is our imagination. And rather than thinking about the scary what if thoughts, what if I can't make that deadline? What if I can't get it done? What if I tell my boss I can't handle this? What if I don't answer those emails tonight before I go home? What if? Well, what if we focus on a positive what if? What if I have help? What if my manager supported me when I said this is too much for me? What if I just waited to answer those emails until the morning and explained that I wasn't able to get to them? What if I asked for something to be removed from my plate? What if I asked if we brought in some extra help to help with what's happening? What if a coworker said, hey, you know what, I can take that on? And then just take another deep breath. And notice the lightness as you start to spend more time thinking about those positive thoughts, that there is a little bit of lightness. And yes, I know not everything is going to be solved. And then there's the response that maybe, what is one thing that you could do? What is one thing that you could do to help with the current situation? It might be, it might be something like have a conversation with your manager. It might be have a conversation with a coworker. Maybe it's have a conversation with your partner. And then I want to encourage you to take that step. And gosh, sometimes it's scary. It's really, really scary because we've never done that before. That's not how we do things. Well, I kept doing things the same way and it just ended, it didn't work out for me. So I was forced to make some scary changes. What my hope is that you can start to make some changes and to be able to do it before before you're forced to. And I'll just invite you, does anybody want to share anything that from that exercise on maybe something that came up, or how they felt, or if there was any fears or resistance that was coming up, or a solution that they've been able to get a little clarity on? Oh, I like take a short break. Good. The strategies, sounds like it's resonating. Good. Oh, good. Good. Someone's experiencing, sharing that they experienced that they've made a change and they took solace in action. And I started out this by talking about self-care, and this is the best form of self-care, is being true to yourself and taking action on when you're able to get a little, to be able to calm down, tune into your inner guidance, tune into your inner knowing, and then being able to gain some clarity, open yourself up to possibilities, and then take action when you're able to clarify one small step. And everything is about one small step at a time. Oh, I love all the stuff coming in the chat. Thank you. If they don't listen to my needs, that's okay. But I need to respond to them. Yep. I've decided to stop trying to convince management. And to take action. Great. Yeah. Breath work is I cannot understate how important it has been in my life. I started with, and when people say, well, I don't have time to meditate, it doesn't take that long. So I take, I meditate 10 minutes for sure, true meditation, but I do some guided meditations throughout our intermixed in the week. But I meditate now any chance I can get. And I'm waiting in the car for somebody. Instead of messing around on my phone, I do a short 5-minute meditation. I meditate before I go to bed. I meditate when I wake up. If I were to wake up in the middle of the night, I meditate to get back to sleep. So it's an ongoing practice, and a lot of it is breath work. If there is one thing that resonates with that, is incorporating your breath work and starting somewhere that is, you say it's a small step. Someone's commented, said it's a small step. It's actually a really big step. So I really want to encourage you to do that. So I just wanted to have you revisit your intention that you set at the top of your page. And if you can spend some time looking at that intention, and let's actually close with a couple deep breaths again and center in on that intention and see if perhaps there was a little clarity around that intention today. And if we get clarity, and I just want to encourage you to, if a step came forward, you've identified a next step, I just want to encourage you to take that next step. And as you start to take the steps, each one gains momentum. Then you'll know the next step, the next step, the next step, and you get into a practice of acting. And that begins the motivation. I think I'm getting a visitor here from my mom or dad. I'm at my mom and dad's condo right now. And I also just want to invite you, everybody that showed up today for the webinar, I want to thank you so much. You already took the first step. And so I just want to say, focus on the positive. Let's all pat ourselves on the back for showing up today. You took an hour out of your busy day to come to this webinar, and you're here and you showed up. So that is a big, big, big first step. And for everybody that's here, I wanted to offer that I'm doing a free 1-hour coaching session with me. You're free to use that time as true coaching, or if you want a consultation, that would be fine. All you need to do is reach out to me at the clearinnerfocus.com website, and you can go under coaches and look for Tracey Huebner. You can also email me directly at tracy@clearinnerfocus.com. And what we can do in our coaching sessions, you're in charge, but what we can do is focus on some particular challenges that you have and work on applying this tool or one of the other tools that we have in our Clear Inner Focus toolbox. So I just want to thank you so much for all showing up today, and thank you very much for your time, and thanks for the participation in the chat. Have a great day.